Hello, I am Kelly Rogers Flint, a West Coast freelance writer.
I'm Lloyd McIntosh, a freelance writer from the southeast of the United States.
And together we are The Rough Draft, the writing podcast.
Well, hey, Kelly, how you doing?
Good. Summer is officially over, kids back in college, and it's
Yeah,
getting real. It's
it's
been real
getting
busy,
it's getting real
right?
friggin' busy. When was the last time we did this? About a month ago, it feels like, doesn't it?
It it does, at least another lifetime ago.
Yeah, our kids are back in college now, and I know both of us. The busy season for some of the things we do is kicked up. For
Yes.
you told me off mic that you've already written two theater reviews already, and
Yes, September is the start of the theater seasons, kind of follow the school season
mhm.
because summers are very difficult for theaters. People go on vacation so much, including actors and directors and choreographers and music directors and costumers and
They get vacations.
technicians and all those, sometimes. And they also, summer is a time that they usually have big educational programs. So they'll have camps for kids and teens
Oh
and
yeah,
adults.
good
And so
point.
they're using their facilities because those things make money to do those things.
Yeah.
So the shows are much lighter in the summer, and then boy, the season then hits hard in September. So yeah, two reviews last week. I've got two more this week, and then they
Wow.
just keep coming.
Well, maybe we'll let you talk about, a couple of those the plays, if we have some time later. But for me, high school football season has started. Of course, that's
Hmm.
that's been my thing the last 3 weeks. And last week I was covering a game in the rain. That was lovely. It only rained in the first half, so that's good. So only half of my notes are destroyed. So, but it's been busy. And golly, I've picked up another city that I'm covering city council meetings on. So I've
Hmm.
got two city council meetings that I'm doing. So that's why you haven't heard from us for a few weeks. Is we've both been, our calendar has been chock full, which is great. It's
Yeah,
great. We're not complaining, but it's freaking busy. So,
busy,
um, so,
busy.
uh, so what? Let me ask you. I want to ask you a question. Okay,
Okay.
so for those people who are maybe listening who are freelance journalists or you know do some writing, kind of like what Kelly does, or what I do, how important is it to have relationships with the theaters, the directors? Like, who do you have to, like, not be friends with, but have relationships with to do what you do?
Oh, goodness. Well, well, for me, with the theaters, you're talking to their public relations
Yeah,
department,
yeah,
or their marketing department, or sometimes it'll say media relations, um, and that's usually your first in. However, if you continue to cover a theater for quite a while, you'll develop relationships beyond that because quite often there will be receptions on opening night, and they like to have the media there for opening night because
yeah.
they hope they're going to get good reviews and can use excerpts and blurbs from that to help promote the run of the show. And on those opening nights, there will be receptions and parties afterwards. And so you get to meet some of the artistic teams, the artistic director, the stage director, technical
Yeah.
director, all different peoples, and you will develop other relationships, which can give you a conduit for doing something beyond the reviews. I'm not at that stage yet here in California, getting there with one theater that I've reviewed
Right.
now maybe four times, five times. But in Seattle, there were definitely people where I would just walk in, they all know me by
Yeah.
sight. And I would be given the chance to, before something even opens, to say, hey, we're doing something really special. This is a
Okay.
new show. And I would get to maybe interview someone in the cast or the director or the playwright or something and do a feature story.
Yeah.
And, you know, before the show even opens.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm going with this because that's what I wanted to kind of get you to talk about, because sometimes I think people don't trust journalists, and goodness knows why. I'm just going to throw it up there, but you know, um, example, I told you I cover, the city of Vestavia Hills, Alabama, a small, upper class, upper middle class suburb of Birmingham. I've got a good relationship with the city manager. We talk quite often. Um, but be frankly, he kind of left me high and dry a couple nights ago on a city council meeting. He had a story that, a good business story, but he let it slip out only at the city council meeting Monday, where I've got a really tight deadline, right? And so I had to try to put all, he had it all in, if you've ever read a city council agenda, I mean, oh Jesus, I mean, neither one of us are. Kelly and I are bright people. Kelly's much brighter above than me, but we're not lawyers, right? And to have to go through all the whereas the city of the beneficiary of the, and so I had like maybe an hour and a half to try to put all this together. And I was walking out of the city council meeting. I was like, Jeff, what the hell, man? Why didn't you give me a heads up? And so we couldn't let it out until tonight. I was like, all you got to do is say that. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk. That's why I wanted to mention it, because, it's a little bit different when you're covering government. I get that, because you're supposed to be somewhat adversarial, but you have to develop a relationship like that. You have to, because it's not only about covering city councils, but I'm also leaning on them for, you know, interesting stories going on. If they'll know about businesses that are coming in, they'll know about people that might have some sort of good story that they'll feed me. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Is like those relationships are important, because all he had to do was tell me, "Hey, Loyd, this is coming, but we can't really say anything until X date." Well, that would have given me time to research, to get some additional interviews.
Release dates are a very normal thing. You hold information until, in fact, back in my days when I worked as a marketing manager, that was part of the press release.
Yes.
You would have a hold date, and
I've
you would
done
have
them
a
too.
kill
Yeah,
date
exactly.
and a kill date. This information is only from this time to that time, and you have to trust who you're giving that information to abide by that. But
well, that's where if you've got a good relationship, it's more than just sending the press release out. That's where you pick up the phone,
right?
And you go, "Hey, Kelly, guess what? I'm going to let you in on this first. I got this cool thing happening coming up, but let me go and give you some details now so that you can be ready. You can ask me questions, but we just can't." And journalists are like, "Okay, absolutely." Now it's probably a little bit different if you're covering, national security and government, different story. But if you're just, I'm covering like I said, a suburb of Birmingham, Alabama. There's no government secret that's going to, alert the Russians what our battle plans are or something. Anyway, I was curious about all that. So
yeah. Well, hopefully they've, you can do a little follow up and say, I would have loved to have been able to include more information on this, but you put me in a pickle there, and there just wasn't time to explore it. And in the future, all you have to do is let me know that there is a release date, and
hopefully,
and I can follow that for you.
Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this podcast. So,
well,
not that I'm saying don't listen to the podcast. I'm just saying maybe he doesn't hear this episode. Well, like I said, I've got a good relationship.
Or maybe he'll learn. Maybe he'll learn something.
I guess.
Because he shot himself in the foot. He could have gotten better coverage.
Yeah, exactly. We could have had a nice big, splashy, first of all, I could have gotten 800 words instead of struggling to get 400, and that's important when the paycheck comes. But anyway.
That's right. Yeah. And for those that don't know, you're often paid by the word.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Often. Not always. Sometimes it's a flat fee but often it's by the word.
Yeah, I've got one of those right now. It's great. 100, a certain amount for the story, doesn't matter what the length is. So if I can only get 600, great. If I get 1,200, great. Those are nice. But you want to do wordplay? You ready to do some wordplay now?
Wordplay.
All right. This is where I'm falling down because I only brought one word today.
That's okay.
You're gonna let me cheat off your homework?
Yes. Because what I did for today was not our usual one or two words that are either overused, underused, or misused, I found a list of interesting words in the English language, and
Oh,
they're
cool.
very colorful.
I like this
And I
already.
think we both really like when writing goes beyond the mundane and doesn't use the generic words for everything. So I thought it'd be fun to look at a couple of these and see if these are words that we use.
Oh,
And
I'm
then
looking forward to
I
this.
okay. So the first one on the list is bamboozled.
Love it.
Bamboozled. That's a fun word.
I, I don't know if I've used it though
I don't think I have either.
in an article, but that's fantastic. I'm
Well,
going to have to figure out a way to get that in there.
I may have used it in describing the plot of a play
Yeah.
because sometimes if there's like hijinks afoot, something could, that could be an appropriate word to use. But maybe
Nice.
I'll look for a way to use it. Okay. Next one, flabbergasted.
I think I have used that in an article or two here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that word. That's a fun word.
It is. It is. And it's kind of got the meaning right there in it with gasted, like from being aghast, so that I think is one that people immediately understand. So you don't have to worry about that. Um, Next up, discombobulated.
Yes. And I think I've used that in an article too. I
Mm-hmm.
have. But that's a good one too.
It is
Like it.
discombobulated. It says it is a pseudo Latinism. Um, so it's based on Latin words like disaffiliate or disaggregate, um, and also considered a humorous alliteration of discompose. Discombobulate,
Discompose.
discompose.
We need that one too.
Yeah. So there are also some variations on it. So this I found very, very interesting. So I think discombobulate is most known, but there's also discombobulate, discombobulate, discomboberate, discombuberate, and discompofligate.
Discompofligate?
Yeah.
Oh, oh wow, that's a good
Dis,
one.
discombobflicate. Discombobflicate. Oh my goodness. So yeah, that sounds like the British took it and like went crazy with it, doesn't it?
Look the way they do everything,
Yes,
which
yes.
is God bless them.
Yes. Now this one I was like, this doesn't even belong on the list because I definitely use this all the time. Shenanigans.
Yeah, I say it. I don't think I've
I
written it.
say it. I definitely use it in theater writing because especially if you're
Makes
writing
sense.
about a comedy, you know,
Yeah.
because okay, one of the hardest parts of a theater review is you have to give kind of a summary of the plot, but only up until a certain point. You can't give away
Can't
what
give away
happens. So you
everything.
kind of
Yeah.
just kind of have to set blah blah blah, so you set the stage of what the situation is with the characters, blah blah blah, and then it's often and shenanigans ensue.
It's perfect, particularly for
Because
a screwball comedy too, right? Yeah.
exactly, because that's what you get all these opposing forces and the different thing, and it's all, especially in Shakespeare where you have all the identity things, and people, and all the misunderstandings happen. Yeah, and shenanigans.
What just came to mind to me was the ski lodge episode of Frasier. You know, I think I saw that recently. I could see that
Oh,
definitely in shenanigans, and that is so
shenanigans.
much like theater. I mean, Frasier to me is like theater on TV. It's the last time you really had theater actors who, at times, did seems like real
Mm,
theater on TV once in a while.
yeah. Well,
You know,
David Hyde Pierce is a big Broadway guy.
of course, yeah.
He's
I think
fabulous
I
on
think they
Broadway.
all have serious theater
And
background.
BB Newworth. Oh
Yeah,
my
of
gosh, BB
course.
Newworth, amazing. Yes. Okay. Next up, cattywampus.
Did I use that recently? I think I used it
Cattywampus.
recently.
Mm.
I,
Okay,
no, I
so
think well, I think I've used it in email communications at work. I've used that several times.
cattywampus.
Yeah.
Okay, so cattywampus comes from the words kata and wampus, where kata means diagonally, and wampus may be similar to the word wampish. It was first recorded between 1830 and 1840. Meanings include askew, awry, positioned diagonally, or obliquely. and it's used to describe something that's in disarray, askew, or
Yeah, not straight.
not
Not
direct
it's
into
not level.
conformity.
Yeah.
Okay. It says it originated in the colonial U.S. and is still in use in the Deep South.
Did it
So,
really?
yeah, colonial
I would
U.S.
have
How about that?
I would have easily thought that was a British word.
Well,
Easily.
colonial U.S. had a lot of British influence.
Yeah, I figured it would just been much older,
Mhm.
or interesting.
So the variations are catty cornered or kitty cornered.
And of
But
course, I've
catty,
heard
I
catty
like
cornered.
the catty wampus. Kitty cornered sounds purposeful. It's just diagonal, whereas catty wampus makes it seem much more out of line and
Yeah.
not intentional. Okay. Next up, lollygag. I love
I
lollygag.
do too. Oh, it's from the best movie ever. You lollygag around, but you lollygag around. You lollygag to the dugout. The
Lollygag is
great
great.
speech by the great late great Troy Wilson and Bull Durham. You know what that makes you, Larry? Lollygaggers.
Lollygaggers. Yeah,
Love
you
that.
can't lollygag. You'll get yourself took us on the bench if you lollygag.
I'm going to use that tomorrow. I'm going to use that in my football story Friday. I'm
I
going to
bet you
find a way.
can.
I'm going to find a
I
way to
bet
use
you
it.
can. Lollygag is great. This is another one I think that has become pretty mainstream. Malarkey.
Yeah,
I think people use
absolutely.
malarkey as much as baloney, right? Malarkey, baloney. I
I
think
think I
that
like
just gets.
malarkey a little better.
I do. It has more flavor.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean that literally, but
So to say, bologna doesn't have much flavor at all.
oh my goodness. Next up, kerfuffle.
I almost was going to
Kerfuffle.
suggest that word tonight. That was one I was thinking about. Kerfuffle. That's a fun word.
I like kerfuffle. Again, it's another. It's just an interesting way to say it. People know what it means, but it doesn't get used enough.
Yeah.
This is another personal favorite of mine is brouhaha.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I love the brouhaha. So brouhaha um, is from French, um, and its first known use was from 1890 French, um, from the French theater.
Really?
Okay. Yes. Interesting, huh?
Huh.
Um, where
That does sound French
it came
influence, doesn't it?
from the cry of the devil disguised as clergy.
Ooh, really?
I know. Isn't that
Ooh. I
interesting?
mean, wow.
Yeah, brouhaha. Ooh, I like it.
If there's a
I like
bench clearing brawl anytime soon
it's a
in a
brouhaha.
sport, it's going to be a brouhaha. Absolutely.
That
Or a
has to be.
kerfuffle. One of the
It
two.
yes, and then you can blame why it happened on our next word. One of the players must have been a nincompoop who let their emotions get the best of them.
uh,
I don't. I have to say I don't use that one very
I don't
much.
either, but it's a fun one to think
Yeah.
about.
Well, I to me words that are used to describe a person that have that kind of humorous but negative association, I will shy away from. Describing a situation is completely different,
Yeah.
right? Right. Here's another one. I think I've used this my entire life. Skedaddle.
I've never written it, but I certainly have said it many, 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 many
Yeah,
times.
skedaddle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I have written it.
I know I've never written it, but I say it a lot. I say it quite a bit.
Again, I think I just tend to use a lot of colorful language in my
Yeah.
theater reviews. I may have used it again talking about, a character that is about to get caught for their shenanigans may have to
Ski daddle.
skedaddle.
I like that. It's like ski daddle. Here down here in
Skedaddle.
Alabama still.
Uh,
Kelly has fled Alabama, but me, I would probably go with the ski daddle.
Skedaddle. Okay. All right. So that's my list. So what was the
Okay,
word you wanted to
I
add
want to
today?
talk about kibosh today for a specific reason. So it's not really about underused. Neither one
Kibosh
of
or
us.
kibosh?
Kibosh. Yeah,
Kibosh?
I
Kibosh. I
did
don't
check it
know.
out
It could be both.
online, and the suggested pronunciation was kibosh, but sometimes I'll say it either way.
Kibosh.
Yeah,
Put the kibosh on
kibosh on
something.
something.
Mm.
I think I must have heard. Regardless, I did use that in a story Friday,
Okay.
and so I'm going to set the stage here. So I was covering a high school football game. If anybody's listening from Birmingham, it was Briarwood Christian. They were hosting Ramsey High School, city school out of Birmingham. So setting the stage real quick, Briarwood was not playing very well at all. They were trailing 23 to nothing at the end of the third quarter and started to come back. And it looked like they might have a chance to win. So they scored 14 points unanswered. They had Ramsey backed up in their own territory. Ramsey had a fourth down. They had a punt from like their own 15. And so they punted, and here's what I wrote. However, Briarwood fumbled the kick, and a pile of Rams pounced on the pigskin, putting the kibosh on what could have been an amazing comeback for the Lions. Okay, so I had a little alliteration going on there. James Ellroy,
Mm-hmm.
one of the art writers I'm going to talk about later, it's kind of one of his things, a lot of alliteration. So I looked at the story online after it got published, and my editor changed the word kibosh to put the stops on what could have been. I'm like, why waste a brain cell to make that change? Like, what was wrong with the word kibosh?
Wait. He used stops in the plural.
Yes, put the stops, you know, on what could have been an amazing comeback. So first of all, again, I don't use sports cliches all the time. Like I'm surprised he left the alliteration in there. I was kind of challenging him, thinking, how is he gonna ruin this? You know what I mean? So he left that in there. But I started thinking, what could have been wrong with the word kibosh? So I was talking to my wife about it last night. I was like, let me talk about this a little bit. And so the first thing we thought was, well, maybe it's a Yiddish term because it does sound Yiddish, kind of. And of course, Briarwood Christian's a Presbyterian school. So I thought, okay, that must be it. So I decided to look it up. It is not. It is the evidence of kibosh dates to the word only a few years before Charles Dickens used it in 1836 in a sketch. But here's what this is on Merriam-Webster's website. Despite kibosh being relatively young in English, its source is elusive. Claims were once made that it was Yiddish, despite the absence of a plausible Yiddish source. Another hypothesis points to the Irish, and I'm going to try to pronounce it, but it's like Kadib Bahas or something, literally the coif or cap of death, explained as headgear a judge put on when pronouncing a death sentence, or as a covering pulled over the face of a corpse when a coffin was closed. Okay, so it's very murky, but evidence for any metaphorical use of this phrase in Irish is lacking, and kibosh is not recorded in English as spoken in Ireland until decades after Dickens first used it. Okay, some other explanations there. Then on Edom Online, again, an author they quoted an author named Bernard Sher, who wrote a book called Slangwich, a dictionary of Irish slang. And again, he goes through a little bit more in detail about this cap of death explanation, about it being, a cap that a judge wears when pronouncing a death sentence on somebody. So it's apparently Irish, but it's murky. So I still can't quite figure out why that word got struck from the story. And
Are you going to ask him? Are you going to ask?
Maybe. I've thought about it. I was like, no, he's sending me to a good game Friday night. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I just don't. I'm going to go see Thompson High School, so I'm going to just let it slide. Again, maybe he's not going to listen to this episode. But
Hmm.
what do you think? I mean, can you think of a reason why that
I
would?
think the change did not improve the story.
I don't either.
I don't think it made it clearer. I don't think it made it easier to read. I don't think it made it more accessible to different readers. I fail to see a reason.
And again, I had that alliteration going with that hard P sound,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I kind of switched to the hard B sound. It's like putting the kibosh on what could have been an amazing comeback right?
Mhm.
So to me, it had balance and oomph and flair and humor, you know. And again, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm not supposed to be funny in sports stories. You're supposed to be,
We're overthinking it.
but that's what I do.
Maybe.
And
I know. Well, that's
hello, Overthinkers Anonymous.
you should have let AI write it.
Yeah. No, it's not. Again, we're using the free version of Zoom, and we have 10 minutes left, so we're gonna have to
Okay. Okay.
hustle.
Well, those were
Um,
some fun words to think about. And I would love if any of our listeners posted on our Facebook page or somewhere if they have used any of these words, or if some of them are their favorites or have words they want to add. We'd love to hear from you.
yep. And again, the email address is a mile long. What is
It
it?
is the rough draft, the writing podcast at gmail.com.
And of course, we do have a website now. I can't remember what it is now. I think it's just roughdraft-podcast.com. We're going to probably be launching a blog soon. Again, it's all about how much time Kelly and I have to do some extra stuff, but we're going to maybe start writing some blog posts there about things that we like to write about, and that'll be fun. And again, you can tell I've got a
Cool.
little bit of a cold too. I mean, I'm
Yes.
sniffling. I'm sounding a little hoarse,
Yeah.
so sorry.
And you can always post on our Facebook page as well.
Yeah, we like to hear from you guys.
Mhm.
But I guess we're going to take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some of our favorite nonfiction and fiction writers.
Sounds good.
Well, welcome back to the Rough Draft Podcast. I'm Loyd McIntosh with my friend and fellow freelance writer, Kelly Rogers Flint. Kelly, I think we have a fun segment. We may return to this later because,
I think so.
we're just fans of writers. But we're going to each talk about one of our favorite nonfiction and fiction writers, and maybe go through a little bit of some of their best lines.
Cool.
So why don't you start? Who do you got? Who do you have first?
Well, it wasn't hard for me to pick my fiction writer because this is someone I've been in love with for a long time. And if anyone knows me, they know I am picking Jane Austen. Um, Jane Austen, a writer from the Regency period, and known for her 6 novels, plus
Mhm.
some juvenilia and one unfinished novel, is without a doubt my favorite author that
Yeah.
I came up to love in high school when I was forced to read one of her books for an honors English class, and was like, oh, wait a minute, I
Yeah,
liked
you actually like
that.
it.
I
Yeah.
I I liked that. And I've been trying to think about what struck me. And my first thought was like, oh well, for once it was a book with a happy ending. A lot of the books that make you read in high school are very, very dark,
Oh yeah.
very, very
Absolutely.
sad, very emotionally wrenching, and it just um and they're about such huge upheavals and wars and famine and drought and dystopian futures and animal farms, right? And all this craziness. And this book is like, nope, it's normal life and about people misunderstanding each other, first impressions, balls and dances and falling in love, or it was a little slice of more normalcy, even though it was from a different
Yeah.
time period. It seemed fresh and different to me. And then I was like, was that it? I was like, maybe there was something else. And so I started looking a little bit deeper. And let me see if I can find. Oh, I've got too many notes. Here's my problem. I started writing notes about Jane Austen, and I was like, oh, and I just found too many things to say. And okay, this is it. So this is from Pride and Prejudice, which is
Okay.
my favorite of her novels. This is a quote. There is a stubbornness about me that can never bear to be frightened at the will of others. My courage always rises at every attempt to intimidate me.
Mm.
And that is a quote from the main character, Elizabeth Bennet, who was a young girl who was trying, someone of higher rank was trying to put her in her place, and it just wasn't working. And I think for me as a young girl, that was also one of those, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to um, meet those challenges when people think I'm not capable of something, which I don't think is as big a deal now, but growing up in when we did in the 80s, the expectations weren't necessarily so high for a girl from rural Alabama. Um, and so I think that really resonated with me, was
Mm.
this character was like, oh no, you're not going to scare me from trying. And just because you think I can't doesn't mean I can't. And dang it, in fact, just because you said it, I'm going to try double hard. Right. So I
Yeah,
think that's,
it's funny.
you have daughters. What do you think?
Well, it's funny. I was just thinking about what you said. You know, again, we come from Birmingham, Alabama in the 80s. And, we were still, I think you and I say I was born in 72. Were you born the same year as me?
71.
71. So we came after the civil rights stuff. We were the first kind of group of kids that grew up not having to
Mhm.
having to deal with that.
Yes. But during second wave
But the
feminism,
second wave, I mean, but we were still,
fem-
we were still, it just, I thought about this quite a bit. We were ready to move on. We were ready to say, and if you were from Birmingham, you just were thought to be a hick, a racist hick,
Mhm.
regardless of what part of town you grew up in. I mean, I dealt with it the same way. I mean, from where I grew up. Um, so yeah, of course, my daughters, they're doing quite well in college and are doing great. And, you know, um, I want them to do, but they don't, it's funny. I don't think they quite have the social hangups yet. I don't think they quite understand class yet. It took
Mhm.
me a minute to figure it out too.
Yeah.
I don't think they quite get that quite yet. A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're probably not exposed to such extremes.
Yeah.
I know my daughter at NYU every now and then encounters someone that blows them away, from
Yeah.
both ends. Sometimes it's an international student who comes from extreme dire circumstances but is brilliant, and other times it is the child of generational wealth. And what are your
Yeah.
weekend plans? Oh, well, we're going to Mallorca, but I don't want to go again, and blah blah blah, or what, those kinds
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. you okay. Right. So yeah, there's some differences there, but I love this spunky character, and I think she spoke to me at a
Yeah.
time when I needed that. I needed someone to say, you can be more than what society tells you can be.
Yeah.
And I think
Like
that
that.
that really really stuck with me. Here's another quote from one of her other novels, North Ranger Abbey. And this is just an example. People think of Jane Austen as romantic novels, and hello, they're not. It's all satire. She pokes fun at the society of her time in such a brilliant way. And I love this quote: "The person, be it gentleman or lady, who has not pleasure in a good novel must be intolerably stupid."
Yeah.
And that's just such a great line, especially because at that time period, novels weren't even popular. Most writing was nonfiction at that time.
Yeah.
And novels were actually considered kind of seedy and
I
not.
was about to ask you that. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I like that. I read something years ago that there was a lot of criticism of young people reading too much. They called it reading fever, and they
Mhm.
actually thought it was a problem.
Especially novels. So,
Yeah.
like, if in her books, if the young women are reading, because it was quite normal for a lot of them to be doing handwork and someone else to read aloud. Like you see that in Little Women, like
Oh,
at the quilting circles, right? One person reads. Um, But it's not until you get later into like Dickens in the Victorian era and the serial writing where they would
Yeah.
publish a chapter every week or something that it became more popular. Back in Jane Austen's time, they were reading things like Fordyce's sermons, very dry, very
Oh Lord.
all the exactly.
Yeah.
So I love that Jane Austen could see beyond those conformities and say, people, there's more. There's more.
Yeah.
And then of course I can't mention Jane Austen without saying she is the author of one of the greatest opening lines of a novel ever. Um, make sure I
She's getting
get
to
it
it to make sure she gets it
exactly.
right. Doesn't
Okay,
leave out a
I'm gonna.
single syllable.
Okay,
Right.
so this is the opening of Pride and
Yeah.
Prejudice. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. And that is a sentence that has been borrowed and used in so many things, and not in its whole, but the whole. It's a truth universally acknowledged. Gets used
Yeah.
so many places. It's just a reference. It's a touchstone, and people know, that. And of course, it's written as complete irony because
Yeah.
because Austen is brilliant in that way. And I just love that her work has in it such universal truths that the adaptations of it into modern settings, into other cultures, adding zombies. There's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is actually a really good book. And also, I'm going to show you here. This was a Mother's Day present from my child last year. They have made graphic novels of it, so it's accessible to even more readers. It's just
If you're listening, Kelly just, it looked to me like it was going to be a
cover.
coloring book to start with, but
Oh,
it's a
they
graphic
make
novel.
those too.
Do
They
they?
make those too, but it's a yeah, no, it's a graphic novel. I guess I should have shown you the inside. The inside, it's a graphic novel. So
Yeah. Nice.
I know. Fabulous. So the story in and of itself transcends the novel. It's become such a cultural part of our society now. And few writers get to have that kind of standing. And
I guess I ought
she's
to
up there
revisit it.
with
I'm
me.
certain we had to read it in high school or junior high. And I'm certain I
Mm.
never read more than about 5 pages. I'm certain
Oh.
that yeah, I mean, this is what's so funny. I hated reading in high school. Hated it. You couldn't make me do it if you held me at gunpoint. Uh, but maybe it was just the stuff they were making us read. Who knows?
Mm.
Or it could be because I was just, too busy doing other stuff
Yeah.
and not giving a crap about school
Yeah.
back.
Well, yeah, it's definitely and it's one of those that I think you can revisit over and over.
Yeah.
I will admit to having read it. I think I'm at 26 now.
Are you serious?
26 times, yes.
Holy crap.
Well, I used to read it like at the end of every semester, but I had to read so much as a history and political science major that I didn't have time for pleasure reading.
Yeah.
So as soon as the semester was over, I wanted to read something for me. And it was the first thing I picked up every
Really?
single semester.
You've read it more than 20 times?
Yes.
Wow.
I read it almost every year.
Wow.
I mean, sometimes I'll do Emma instead or Sense and Sensibility or something else. And every now and then I'll I'm going to read all of her novels this year and I'll reread all 6 of them because I will.
How much of it have you committed to memory? I'm serious. I'm not joking.
I don't know that I try to commit it to memory. The cadence is a little hard for modern
Yeah.
tongues.
Yeah.
But it's like an old friend. It just gets better and better going back to it. It's like it's comfort food in the form of a book.
Now, I will say that I don't typically, I think I've only done that a few times, read a book more than once. But I know sometimes people criticize book owners who like to have bookshelves full of books. You've heard that.
Yes, I have.
I think it's crazy. Sometimes I'll just look and remember like where I was when I read that book that's on my shelf.
Hmm.
And I remember not only
Yeah.
just what the book was about, but just how, you know, now that was the summer I sat on my back patio and, would read a few chapters and just
Yeah.
chill and watch the birds for a minute, or something.
Yeah.
Having those books on the shelf, and it reminds me of,
It's like a photo album almost,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
It contains multitudes.
So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you think, if you're one of those who thinks it's somehow nuts to own books, you're wrong.
Yeah. Now I am a huge proponent of the library, and I do get a ton of stuff from the library, and
Yeah.
I will always say support your libraries, but um my husband and I decided early on, both for ourselves and especially for our children, we instituted a no guilt book rule. We would never feel guilty for buying a book ever.
Yeah. I don't either. I mean,
And
we never
part of
really
that
set any kind
is
of
because
policy, but
I want people to keep writing books. There
yeah.
have been times that I have read something from the library and then gone out and bought it after I've read it,
Yeah.
just because I want some money to go to that author because I want them to write something else.
I tell you, I tend to buy used books a lot. And it never really dawned on me until recently that authors don't get royalties on that. They
No,
should. Maybe it's not the same amount as but I definitely think that should be something that's rectified. I think they're trying that. So I think maybe in the UK
hmm.
there's some effort to
I
do
don't
that,
know.
but I do definitely think that writers ought to get royalties off of used books. Definitely.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're
Okay.
way off topic. We were just saying in our break we're going to get to the point and move on,
We're
and of
gonna be
course we didn't.
succinct. Well, that's because great writers bring out such passionate thoughts
That's why we're doing this
and ideas.
podcast.
Okay.
Amen.
So which writer do you want to start with
I'm
today?
going to
Who do
start
you
with
want
my
to talk about?
nonfiction. And just like you have brought
Nonfiction.
up the same
Okay.
person many, many times, I'm going to bring up George Plimpton. Now, I
Okay.
want I want to talk a little bit about how, again, I was a dingaling in high school. I was a dingbat. I was a dumbass. I just, I played
Nincompoop.
sports. Exactly. I just, I, you know, I didn't read much in high school. I started reading more in college, but every now and then this dude George Plimpton would wind up on like a TV or something show or something with that haircut. I'm like, who is this? Who is this guy that keeps coming up on TV once in a while? Like, I'm just like, who is this goober? Right? He just annoyed me, just annoyed. So I'm in college and I'm out. I think I went out and played some basketball one day. I came back to my apartment and I turned the television on. I think the remote was on the other side of the room. I was exhausted, and CNN came on. This is when CNN was good watching. It's a train wreck now, but CNN was actually a pretty good network for many years, 80s and 90s. I watched a lot of it. Random Saturday afternoon, I think it was the occasion of maybe his 70th birthday. They did an hour long just documentary about George Plimpton, and I went from who is this, as I said, goober, to this is the most fascinating human being I've ever encountered, because they went through the whole thing, all of the participatory journalism, all the people he knew, the Paris Review. And I was fascinated by him all of a sudden. I had no idea really what he was about because it was never really explained. He just popped up on Wings one day or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I've dug into him over the years. And of course, everybody knows about, the paper Lion and a lot of his participatory journalism stuff, but he was a fabulous essayist. He wrote for all the New York magazines a lot. And I think I mentioned this essay early on, but we're just sort of in brief. But one of my favorite essays is about Elaine's restaurant. I think it's titled Elaine's Restaurant. Maybe in some cases it might be titled A Dinner at Elaine's. But of course, if anybody knows anything about New York, literary society, that was where all the celebrity writers hung out. Woody Allen, lots of other people, Gay Talese, all those people hung out there. And it was also a place for musicians and other celebrities too, who kind of want to be seen. Well, there's in this essay, George Plimpton has allowed himself to be auctioned off a weekend with the Plimptons, right? So it's some kind of charity. You pay a bunch of money and You get to hang out with the Plimptons for a weekend. And so he starts off talking about what he's going to do, maybe go to the theater, maybe take him to a nice dinner, play pool at his home or something like that. Well, it turns out a struggling writer from the Midwest and his wife put everything they had into buying that weekend with George Plimpton. Like you know, he wasn't sure what he was going to do with him. And in the essay, his wife came to George and said, you know, we put all of our savings into this because my husband wants to be a writer and he's struggling, right? So he decides to take him to Elaine's. So the Plimptons take this guy who's not published anything yet to Elaine's restaurant, and he's introducing him to all these people. Like I mentioned, you know, Gay Talese, A. Hotchner, who else? Winston Groom was in there. All these celebrity writers, and he's just introducing to him. Hey, let me introduce you to the writer, Jerry Spinelli. Jerry Spinelli was the cat's name, right? And so here's a great line here. So to see, give me a moment here. Let's see. So he's right here. He's talking about at the next table. We paused to introduce ourselves to Gay Talese, who had just published Thy Neighbor's Wife, and A.E. Hotchner, the author of Papa Hemingway. Mr. Talese, Mr. Hotchner, may I present Jerry Spinelli, the writer from Philadelphia. When he heard me introducing him as the writer from Philadelphia, Mr. Spinelli beamed. We moved on to Bruce J. Friedman, sitting with a large crowd. Bruce, Mr. Spinelli, the writer from Philadelphia. Bruce rose and presented Mr. Spinelli to his friends. And it goes on and on like this. And, you know, at a point, he comes across Woody Allen, who the thing was, you didn't speak to Woody Allen when he was at Elaine's. You didn't speak to him, right? So, of course, George Plimpton said, screw that. I want to speak to, you know. So he says, you know, he says, Mr. Allen, I want to introduce you to the writer from Philadelphia, Mr. Spinelli, Jerry Spinelli. And to which Woody Allen, you know, goes, I know who he is, you know, which he hadn't published anything, right? So it goes on and on like this. And then finally, you know, they finish the night and they have a good time. And then this is the last paragraph. 3 months ago, I received a letter from Jerry Spinelli. He was writing to tell me that his novel had just been published by Little Brown. It was a cheerful, chatty letter. And this sentence makes me tear up. Though he did not mention it, I knew he would want me to give his best regards to the gang at Elaine's. It just, George Plimpton was such a lovely man. He was so nice to people. You know, we were talking about class a minute ago. I don't think he saw class. I think he was very, you know, well-to-do. He was very, you know, well-educated, but I think he genuinely loved people from everywhere. I think that was such a lovely essay. It gets me every time. And Jerry Spinelli actually is a very well-respected young adult novelist. He's written dozens of books.
Oh yeah,
it was his first novel. And
yes,
so
I have shelved them many times volunteering at the high school and
yeah,
middle school library.
yeah, and he's still alive. I think he's in his early 80s now. But that essay just tells you everything you need to know about George Plimpton, about just what a man he was. You know, there's another great essay. This is a the best of here, great collection. There's another essay where he's playing horseshoes with has just been elected President Bush. Now, I would imagine that George Plimpton's politics did not align with George Bush, but they had it was a lovely conversation and a lovely interview where they talked about life over playing horseshoes in the backyard at Kennebunkport. You know, that to me, that's what I like about him, is that he never looked down on anybody. You know, when he was playing football, when he was trying out to play, you know, for the Paper Lion, he knew he was on their turf. And so he knew that he had to, you know, adjust to their life, not the opposite way around. I just love the man. He's, you know, yeah. He was supposed to be the keynote speaker at the Writers' Conference at Birmingham Southern College the year he passed away. Oh. He was supposed to be. Of course, I'd gone a few years. I think Gay Talese ended up filling in for him. But he was supposed to be the keynote here at Birmingham Southern, which of course closed its doors earlier this year. Yeah. So
I took some classes at Birmingham Southern.
Did you? Oh, that's right. I think you start there.
No, I was full-time at Samford, but I didn't want to do the PE credits, so I took ballet
Oh,
at
that's right.
Birmingham Southern and transferred them in as my PE
That's
credits.
awesome. That's
But yeah, no, I think about George Plimpton is that his writing not only reveals information about who he's writing about,
yeah.
it reveals stuff about himself and about the world at large.
He
Because he finds those universal
yeah.
truths, the things that connect, the things that give commonality so that people can relate to each other regardless of what we often focus on, which are the differences.
Yeah.
So I think he was really good at finding where different minds can meet.
And I think he was genuine about it.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I'm reading right now. I'm reading the book. Oh crap, the boxing book. What the heck? I can't think of the name of it all of a sudden. I'm an idiot. You know.
Well, I'm sure
Where
it's on our Facebook page.
anyway, I'm in the middle of it, but he had time with Muhammad Ali.
Mm.
And he wrote warts and all, but that's a testament to in that early '60s to be able to you know make friends with pretty much anybody. And I think that it's more than empathy. It's a fascination with. I think
He was a people person.
he was a people person. I think he was
Mhm.
fascinating. If anybody were to ask me who my favorite American was, it would not be a politician. It would be George Plimpton. I think
Yeah.
he just absolutely exemplifies the best of the American character.
Yeah.
I think he
Well,
was a fabulous
you
person.
remember how I described him last time you
Oh
brought him
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah.
He's Mr. Rogers for adults.
So sooner or later we're going to move off. We need
And
to
that
move
is
off from our favorite writers, but it's going to be hard.
yeah, well, there's inspirational and we want to make sure that the people out there aren't missing out on those things that we have found so
Yeah,
inspirational
yeah.
and genuine and motivational for us to enjoy reading and writing and honing the craft of manipulating words
Now,
into
I want to tell
expressing ideas.
one more quick quip.
Okay.
I was trying to find the quote in this book, but of course, he wrote Paper Lion, but after that, he wrote a book called Mad Ducks and Bears, and one it was about a couple of players. One of them was Alex Karras. Alec Karras, he was ended up being the actor on Blazing Saddles, and Webster, of course, passed away not too long ago. But he he spent some time with him a couple of seasons after he was in Detroit for the Paper Lion. But that year that he was doing Paper Lion, Karras had been suspended from the league for a gambling issue, right? So there's a point in Mad Ducks and Bears where he's recounting a conversation over a card game while he was writing Paper Lion, where they were talking about Karras and about how he was just sort of this corn-fed, farm boy from Iowa, and now in college for the first time at the University of Iowa. And they were trying to fix him up on his first date. This is in the late '50s. Oh my God, we've only got 10 minutes. Holy crap.
Oh my
Sorry.
goodness.
I know we keep talking. So we're going to do one writer each today. So anyways, the point is that they were trying to get him to ask this girl out to dance on at a formal. And Plimpton is just he's recounting the card game. He's like, okay, yeah, give me a pair of cards here. Who's got that? And so the girl came up to him and give me, let me have two right here. Who needs another pair? And he said, let me tell you, the girl had a face that looked like it had blocked a punt. And I howled. I laughed so hard. It was like at midnight. I woke the entire household up laughing so hard. The way he just recounted that story. I know it's not exactly kind, but it was just the way he was able to just record everything and relay it back in print. Good God, it was the funniest thing I think I'd ever read in my life. He was just a dynamite writer, but just a funny guy too. Anyway, well, we've only got 10 minutes left, or 8. So I guess we're only going to talk one writer today, huh?
Well, that's okay. We're being thorough.
So tell you what, we'll take a break and come back and wrap things up.
Sounds good.
All right.
back to the Rough Draft. I'm Kelly Rogers Flint here with my cohort, Loyd McIntosh. And we are ready to have our closing paragraph. So, we're going to talk just a sec about what we've got on tap, what things we're working on in the writing world that hopefully you will soon see in print. What have you got going, Loyd?
Too darn much. Be honest with you, been very busy. Of course, my main newspaper stuff, writing, high school football stories, city council stuff. Got a couple of things coming out in some magazines around town. One of them, I ended up doing a story on what was called the a regatta. It was a kids, they call it the rock paper scissors regatta. The Birmingham Sailing Club does this youth event. So I went out on the lake about 2 or 3 weeks ago with some people and just watched these kids sail sailboats and wrote a fun little article about it. So that's coming out in the magazine here in Talladega County, local to where I live, lakeside living, but I'll put it on my website. And then I also did a story on the new owner of a place in Birmingham, the oldest. People might not know Birmingham has a big Greek influence in its food, and this guy named Lee Pentazis, 30 something years old, just bought the oldest consistently Greek owned restaurant in Birmingham called Gus's Hot Dogs. It's about the size of a phone booth, and we had a fun time talking about hot dogs and what he's doing, and he's got him a food truck now. So interesting guy, a lot of fun. So that's coming out in Birmingham Lifestyles, I think in October, I think. Anyway.
Nice. Those will be interesting. Always love me some good Greek food.
Yeah. Again, these are just hot dogs, but what the hell? This is good.
Maybe they'll expand.
Yeah.
If it does well. Yeah.
He's doing very well. So
that's great.
So what you got? You've got like you said, you've got a couple of theater reviews.
I've got two more theater reviews this week. Yeah, I'm really excited because they're both new theaters that I haven't. Well, they're not new theaters. They're new to me. Theaters I haven't gotten to cover before. So the first is Gods of Carnage at Masker's Playhouse in Berkeley. Or no, sorry, it's not in Berkeley. It's in Richmond, Richmond, California. I'm in California now. And so I'm looking forward to that. And then I'm going to see an old classic good comedy, Arsenic and Old Lace at the Lesher Center in Walnut Creek. So that will be a new one for me as well. So making some new connections at some theaters out there. And looking forward to seeing both of those.
Yeah. Now you mentioned in the early part that you're still kind of getting your feet wet there in is it the Bay Area
yes.
Broadway world?
Yes.
I mean, do you think are you getting well known enough out there to start maybe getting in some other publications or anything like that?
Well, it's really, really slow. I did get invited just last week. I taught an audition workshop for one of the local high schools. They invited me to come in to help give them some prep before they had the auditions for their fall play. So that was fun to work with some kids doing that. We'll see. It is slow.
Gotcha. Well,
it is slow.
Well, hopefully they'll pick up for you. So, pick up as much as you want. I mean, I've had a hard time saying no recently, and I really do need to.
The theater director at that high school, or she teaches the drama class there. We've been talking, and I think I'm gonna go in for like a whole week as a guest lecturer later this year to talk to them about theater reviewing.
And to
kind of integrate that in their curriculum, teach them about theater reviews, and then we'll do a field trip and go see a show, and then I'll help them write their own theater reviews. So that could be interesting.
I almost reached out to you because I did a little thing here locally where I live, small town where I live. We have a little theater, and they had a magic show that they wanted me to go review. I was like, I don't know. I ended up putting it together, but I had you in mind the whole time. Like I really, it was local. It wasn't any kind of major thing. It was just some magicians doing some stuff, but it was kind of fun. I was like, oh yeah, I'm treading on Kelly's territory, sort of, kind of.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. When we need to support the arts, they
Yeah,
are still hurting coming back from
absolutely.
the pandemic. And yeah, go support the arts,
Yeah.
go support the libraries, go support local writers, all of those things.
Your local bookstores, absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right.
Independent bookstores, especially.
Yes.
Yep.
Well,
Absolutely.
Kelly, it's been fun. I'm glad we finally got a chance to get this on the schedule. Hopefully, it won't take us another month and a half or whatever it was to
Yeah.
get the next one scheduled. But
Perfect.
um, guys, thanks for listening. Kelly, got any last words?
No, I think we just said them.
Good deal. All right. All right, guys. Thanks for
All
listening.
right. Till next time.